Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another episode of NASCAR Backmarker Battles. I'm your host, Colby Evans, a.k.a. Starting Parker on Twitter, and we have a huge show for you guys today. We have two different races to talk about from this past weekend. The Xfinity Series at one of my all-time favorite road courses, Road America, and yet the Cup Series and Truck Series at one of my least favorite tracks on the circuit, Richmond, while also previewing this weekend's Xfinity and Cup races from Michigan as well. So big show for you guys today. Again, I welcome you all here. I'm going to go through my short little intro. I talk about the beginning of every podcast, and we will jump right into the NASCAR action. So, of course, guys, you guys know the drill. Follow me on Twitter, social media at Starting Park Car for all ARCA tweets, lower budget team tweets, and all the other fun crap you guys are used to me tweeting. Like and subscribe to the channel, turn on that bell for notifications so you never miss a podcast. Not posting as much on the YouTube channel anymore is because I've been going through some issues with that, but we're still doing the weekly podcasts because, well, I got nothing better to do. So, yeah, like and subscribe to the channel. And then, of course, check out the racingexperts.com for all NASCAR media-related content. So, yeah, we had Richmond and Road America, one of my favorite road courses and one of my least favorite tracks on the circuit. So it's kind of a weird good and bad, one of those good and bad weekends. Road America, just one of my all-time favorite road courses to race on in the virtual game world. A track that I love to go visit. It's only about 6.5 hours away from my house. Couldn't make the trip this year due to some financial problems, which is understandable. You know, it's not getting any cheaper to travel to races. And then we got Richmond, a track that, some people still love and others like me and a lot of other fans have soured on, and you can kind of go 50-50 on whether reasons why you like Richmond and reasons why you don't like Richmond. In my personal opinion, I don't think Richmond has really given, at least in my view, a good race in almost 10 years. For me, it's been about 10 years since I've honestly feel like I've seen a good Richmond race. And that's really me being honest. When it comes to the Cup Series, some of the Xfinity and truck races have actually been pretty decent in the last couple years, but it's the Cup Series themselves. And these next-gen cars are not doing Richmond any favors, in my opinion. I honestly feel that the Richmond next-gen races none of them have been good, in my opinion. You guys might disagree with me. I'd love to see your arguments in the chat. While you guys for the people who watch this podcast who thought it was a good race, I would love to see your arguments in the chat. We'll talk about them. Also for Richmond has never really been kind to the Backmarkers. They can run, but they know you don't run well. You'll rarely see a Backmarker climb into the top 20 at a track like Richmond, mainly because of the tires. Obviously, the tires wearing out so quickly. You got to really nail the setup, handling issues. And for a lot of these lower tier teams, Richmond can really be a struggle. Despite their strong suit being short tracks, Richmond can actually be one of the hardest tracks for a lower budget team. You really got to nail the setup perfectly to be able to even think about winning. We'll go in order. So we'll start off with the trucks, then Xfinity, and then Cup, since it happened in that order. I don't want to just do Richmond and then Road America or Road America and then Richmond. I'll just do the way they happened. So we'll start off, like I said, with the Truck Series, the 2023 Worldwide Express 250. Shout out to Worldwide Express, one of the newer sponsors of the sport in the last couple of years, and they've been sponsoring trucks left and right for Nice Motorsports and have been sponsoring races. So it's great to see new sponsors really giving a lot of exposure in the sport. In a rarity, we had 38 trucks for 36 spots. For some reason, Richmond has always been kind of one of the higher drawing trucks races of the year, which is weird. Never really wouldn't go out of my way to enter this race. Last year, we had a whopping 42 entries for this race. This year, we only have 38. Now, we were going to have some show up that didn't. Norm Benning had originally planned to show up. Todd Peck's team had originally planned to show up, but likely looking at the entry list, realizing that they had no owner points, they kindly withdrew, which obviously, there's no way Norm or Todd were gonna make the show on time. And in this day and age, with the financial problems with the world, it's not even worth it to try to show up and just DNQ. You won't make any money, and you'll just lose way more than you're trying to make. We had 38 trucks for 36 spots. The trucks on the hot seat for this were the 90 of Justin Carroll. He came into this race, like I said, that truck's only run a couple races this year. I think it's only made 2 races. So that truck was low in points. 14 of Trey Hutchins, which has only made 1 race this year. Those were the 2 trucks on the hot seat. Some of the other oddball entries, we had Matt Mills. Yes, that Matt Mills in the KBM 51. We had Derek Lemke, Natalie Decker's boyfriend, his only claim to fame, which is being Natalie Decker's boyfriend. He was in the 33 for Josh Rayom, and Josh Rayom himself was in his 34 truck. And Will Rogers was in the 02. Mason Massey, who used to drive for Rayom, was in the 20. As you know, Young's been trying to fill up that 20 truck. And I believe that was it. I think it was kind of the standard rest of the field. So in practice, all 38 trucks obviously took a time. Some notable issues from practice, the 46 of Jerry Bowman. I feel kind of bad for Jerry Bowman. He got no laps at Bristol at all. I don't think he got any practice laps, and he did not compete in any of the heat races. And in this race at Richmond, he got a whopping 3 laps in before the truck broke. I don't know if they said he hit the wall or something. We'll talk about this when we get to the qualifying portion of the truck series, but Jerry Bowman, this would be the only 3 laps he would do, as truck qualifying was not televised, so this really wasn't known to anybody. Obviously, since it wasn't televised, it wasn't shown on TV. We'll come to later find out some weird reasons on why the 46, spoiler alert, would actually miss the show. And Justin Carroll, he went through his own personal stuff. The one thing I really haven't liked about the truck series, they're over-policing it. And, this comes from a guy who, I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not going to say I do, but I've been around long enough. I feel like I've been around with Timmy Hill's team, with Norm Benning's operation for quite a long time now. I'd say well over 5 years. I've only been with Hill for a couple years, but I worked with Benning for a while. And NASCAR just really seems to be over-policing the truck series. I understand why. I still don't like the spec motors. I think that is just a horrible call. I don't like spec motors. No disrespect to Ilmore, but I don't like spec motors. The idea of a spec motor doesn't just sound like a good idea, especially with how much the Ilmores are costing. But yeah, they're just over-policing themselves. And apparently the 90 had the wrong shocks. They made them change it. They barely got on track for qualifying. I don't know how you can have the wrong shock. I don't know. But just glad the 90 got out there. He would end up being slowest. Bowman only got 3 laps in, like I said before, the truck broke as well. I don't know if he hit the wall or the truck broke. Matt Mills was down in 34th, so I was kind of getting scared, man. Like, man, I hope Matt Mills really doesn't embarrass himself in what might be his only legit chance in top equipment. Thankfully, he would redeem himself. Other notables, Daniel Dye is having absolutely one of the worst rookie seasons I've ever seen in the truck series. From a championship ARCA contender, and virtually it's the exact same operation. Same hauler, pretty much the same crew guys, transferred from his ARCA team to his truck team. And the 43 team has been nothing but garbage this year. And it's kind of sad. I mean, this is GMS Racing. Grant Enfinger, 2 wins this year in the playoffs. And the 43 truck is just garbage. Honestly, they really haven't done anything all year. Haley Deegan, there's rumors that Ford might be letting her go at the end of the year. She's done nothing in that 13 truck at all. Jake Drew in 1 race for Thor Sports showed more potential than Haley Deegan's done all year. And that's easy to say. Some other surprises in practice. You had Taylor Gray, Matt DiBenedetto, Corey Heim, all down the charts. You had guys like Timmy Hill in 11th, Lawless Allen in 13th, Ryan Vargas in 16th, Colby Howard in 15th. That, maybe you wouldn't expect to see up there. Brett Holmes was up in 6th. But I guess it really kind of is when you hit the track, if you hit the track perfectly, maybe there's a cloud. That's the thing with Richmond. It's a very hit or miss track. You can run a great lap and then run 4/10 off the next one. That's just kind of also the track that Richmond is. You can nail 1 lap, but never even come close to that lap ever again. And it would kind of say the same for qualifying. A lot of the guys that did well in practice and did bad in practice would end up doing better and doing worse in qualifying. Like, for instance, like Corey Heim, 30th in practice, but Corey Heim was second on the grid. Matt Mills was 34th in practice, but 5th in qualifying. So I was happy to see that Mills would redeem himself and not embarrass himself in the truck race, because I didn't want to see that. Matt Mills is a good kid. But now we turn into some of the issues with truck qualifying, the DNQs. Unfortunately, Trey Hutchins, it's just kind of been their nature of this season. They're just simply too slow. Too slow. Justin gave it his best shot, picked up over a second from practice, which was pretty impressive for a truck of his nature. But he had only beaten a couple of trucks. It was also Christian Rose from the ARC Series. It was his debut in the 22 as well. But he had owner points to back him up. And it looked as simple as the 90 and the 14 would be our DNQs. But unfortunately, after a lot of us had tweeted that out, again, there was no television. So we really did not, we kind of just assumed, okay, the 90 and the 14 didn't make it. But then all of a sudden, I was getting screenshots from fans online saying, no, the 46 went home and the 90 is being shown on NASCAR's starting lineup sheet. The NASCAR app starting lineup sheets, it has the grid, and the 90 truck was there and the 14 was not. And I'm like confused. The 46 truck obviously has plenty of owner points. So it was a very weird situation. And we were kind of getting sources from both sides. Memphis Villarreal's brother or relative was starting to tweet out some stuff, but then he quickly deleted his tweets. And then finally, we would come to find out from Tim Vines, the part owner of G2G, that the 46 was apparently a late entry file. And unfortunately, when that happens, your owner points slot is taken away from you, which means you have to make the show on time. Like, basically what that was implying was that the 90 was above the 14 in points, but now coming into this weekend that none of us knew, the 46 was below everybody. So basically the 46 came into this weekend, into Richmond, with no points due to the late entry and had to qualify on time. That would have been nice to know. Nobody knew that. So it was just a mass confusion. Even when that was announced, and it was announced as the 46 went home, we still had people going back and forth about how this didn't make any sense. And then, of course, Tim Vines would, he would put out a statement again, clarifying the whole late entry, owner points being nullified, and it sucks that we went home. And what would also come to find out is that Jerry Bowman didn't actually qualify the truck. It was Memphis Villarreal, who has made a couple attempts this season and has done quite well for the G2G team, I might add. He actually attempted this qualifying session that we'd also come to find out. Now, obviously, Memphis not having any laps at Richmond. I mean, you're throwing him to the wolves. He did the best he could with his 2 laps, but, I mean, he was arguably the slowest truck. He missed the cut line by over a second. So, yeah, hopefully that ties up some confusion on the 46 truck. It basically was just a lack of, late entries. You don't usually see that in NASCAR. Usually, in terms of even ARCA, you get your entries in when you get your entries in. It's kind of surprising that a team would wait so long to file their entry when they clearly had a planned driver to go. So, but it was great news for Justin Carroll. I mean, I don't think he realized he was even in the show. And I wonder if they'd even started loading up. But it was great to see Justin Carroll make it in. That guy works. So, I mean, after DNQing 5 straight races last year, I was so glad to see Justin just make races this year. I didn't even know if that team was going to survive. Because in this day and age, DNQing 5 straight races and a part-time team, that's a death nail for a team. But thankfully, they're still in business and they're finally starting to make races. So that was the chaos from qualifying. Also, Trey Hutchins, like I said, it's just Trey Hutchins, they've managed to stay in business, but whenever they make races, they usually don't run well, and most of the time they're just too slow. Some other notes from qualifying. Spencer Boyd was not actually the slowest Young's truck. I know. I'm shocked, too. Mason Massey was actually slower than him. Not in the race, but somehow Spencer Boyd was not the slowest. Lemke was actually pretty quick for Rayom Truck in 31st. Timmy was down in 30th. Ryan Vargas down in 28th. Colby Howard down in 27th. So some of the guys that had practiced good, like I said, didn't do the best in qualifying, unfortunately. But again, that's Richmond. Sometimes you can do great in one session and do not so great in the other session. So that happens. The only real backmarker spotlight, and I can't even classify them as a backmarker team, more of just a mid-pack team. And that would be it would really kind of be the 25 truck. But can you really classify them as a backmarker organization? You really kind of can't. Not even a mid-pack team. Rackley War has done a good job of making themselves a winning, capable organization. Yes, Carroll's team owner. Yeah, Carroll's all automotive. So, yeah, they're decently funded, but still DNQing all those races in the chat, guys, won't help them. Yeah, I agree in the chat, Daniel. Yeah, they're 7th to 15th place teams. So I can't even call them. Last year, they were mid-pack. This year that they're actually better than they were. And so the truck race is going on. And I'll just, like I said, guys, I tweeted it out during the truck race. I just did not enjoy the race. I didn't. I followed my backmarker guys, and that was about it. I don't know. It's not a track, like I said, I particularly enjoy. I just think they're going too slow. It's not really the lack of cautions. They're just going so slow. It's hard to pass. And it's just there wasn't much happening. There really wasn't much happening. I feel bad for Ty Majeski. I mean, he had a hot rod, came from the rear of the field, still managed to lose via tire strategy, which is, again, I hate seeing someone lose just because they had the bad tires, not because they had a slow truck. And like I said, none of the backmarkers really did good because this is a hard track to do well on for a backmarker organization. Spoiler, so Carson Hocevar did win the race by choosing a tire strategy over Ty Majeski and running him down with a couple laps to go. So Carson Hocevar gets yet another win. Don't really care for Carson Hocevar all that much, but oh well, good to see Nice get another win. Matt Mills was kind of the great story of the race. He ran no worse than 12th. Really did better than Chase Purdy most of the whole race, which was not shocking. Everyone's better than Chase Purdy. And came away with a very solid 5th place finish. I thought it was a well-earned 5th place finish. And I think Matt Mills, I tweeted out, Matt Mills is a great example of a guy who, he's a paid driver at the end of the day. We know he's a paid driver. He won't get where he is without JF Electric on the hood. But at the end of the day, I think he's a good example of when we get one of these young pay drivers, they're used to driving bad equipment. I mean, I love BJ McLeod, but his Xfinity team was nothing special. And Matt Mills was kind of stagnated at BJ McLeod Motorsports. Well, he left BJ McLeod at the end of last year and has kind of been around the place. He's been running a lot of for Youngs this year. Hasn't really done well for Youngs, even DNQ'd some truck races for Youngs. But you put him in a truck like this, and look what he can do. And I think it really goes to show you some of these young kids who have a lot of money behind them, if they can just get a chance in like these KBM trucks, we could see the next top young talent in the sport get noticed. But a lot of these kids will never have that opportunity because they just simply don't have the financial behind them. But I think Matt Mills is a great example of a kid who he just needed that right ride to really show what he could do. And I'm excited to see what Matt Mills will do in his second start for KBM. Other than that, like I said, there was really no other good underdog type runs. I would say Timmy Hill, unfortunately for them, they were running on old tires. Kind of sucked, but 5 laps to go, they were 18th. And by the end of the race, they were 23rd. But there was nothing Timmy could do. He was on old tires. He just had to hang on the best he could. Still, 23rd is not a bad run. 24th for Colby Howard, 26th for Will Rogers. Stuart Friesen down in 27th. That was probably one of the worst runs I've ever seen the 52 truck ever have. Brett Holmes down in 29th. I really hate to see that team so unsponsored. I'm surprised at how well the 32 team's still staying in business with their lack of sponsorship. Ryan Vargas, he was better than 30th, but they had a spin. They had a spin during the race. Thankfully, he caught it, but it pretty much killed any chance of a good finish down to 30th. Justin Carroll ended up 31st. Christian Rose down in 32nd. Truck really was better than 32nd. Should have been better than that. Derek Lemke, 33rd. Again, it's the Rayom truck, so we shouldn't expect on a track like this not too much out of them. Mason Massey down in 34th. He had some green flag pit stop issues. So did Spencer Boyd. And Josh Rayom down in last place. He actually did clip the wall. Surprisingly, didn't bring out a yellow. But Josh Rayom would clip the wall during the race. They would spend numerous laps on pit road fixing the truck. And Josh would nurse the truck home in last place, 36th. So all 36 trucks finished this race. One of the very rare times you will see a truck race with all 36 starters finish. So overall, like I said, not my favorite race. Not really something not a track I prefer to watch. But hey, some people liked it. Some people didn't. It's kind of the way I call it at the end of the day. But yeah, for the Backmarkers, really wasn't the best showing for them. Again, and it's a struggling track, so it's understandable. But yeah, so that was Truck Series at Richmond. And now we move on to, again, the highlight, in my opinion, of the weekend, Road America. Road America 180. Kind of hate that this race doesn't have a sponsorship. The Henry at 180 had such a good ring to it. Surprisingly for this race, and I'm utterly shocked, that we only had 38 cars for this race. Last couple years, 2021 had, 44 cars? 44 cars entered this race. 2022, I think, had, almost 41 entered this race. And this year, only 38. No 50 car. No fourth RSS car. Just really surprised to see only 38 cars. But at the end of the day, it was also good because that meant Carl Long and MBM and Dexter Stacy were locked into the show. Some of the oddball entries we had included AJ Allmendinger for some reason. Still don't understand why they were having him run this race instead of Richmond. Josh Bilicki, of course, road ringer in the 91. That wasn't shocking. We expected him. Sage Karam in the 24 for Sam Hunt. Brad Perez in the 44 for Alpha Prime. That was cool to see. Catherine Legg from the IndyCar circuit. She was back in NASCAR for the first time since 2019. In the 07 for SS Greenlight Racing. Leland Honeyman Jr., 45 for Alpha Prime. Stanton Barrett, stuntman Stanton, in the 35 for Emmerling Gase. Patrick Emmerling in the 53. Dexter Stacy in the 66. And Kyle Weatherman in the 4. Practice was a mess. We had a whopping not 1, not 2, not 3, but we had 7 cars that did not make it from practice to qualifying. Definitely one of the weirder practice sessions, but again, it was the fresh pavement, and a lot of people just had issues. But yeah, the practice charts, again, top drivers are up there. Nothing weird to expect, but yeah, in terms of qualifying, only 31 of the 38 cars took a lap. The 11 of Daniel Hemrick had mechanical problems. The 9 of Brandon Jones crashed as usual. Ryan Sieg I think he crashed. I'm not sure. Joe Graff Jr. had mechanical problems. The 43 had mechanical problems. The 08 of Alex LeBay was on fire. And the 4 of Kyle Weatherman was also having mechanical problems. So a lot of gremlins in the garage area. And only, like I said, only 31 of the cars. And even Jeremy Clemens in qualifying, he had issues as well. He got a lap in, but he still had issues. So it was really slow lap. So it was kind of funny. I was putting it on Twitter, man, it sucks that CHK didn't enter this race. They would have made the show. That's the funniest part about this. Had CHK and the 74 team actually shown up, they would have made the show. And the funny part is that Dexter was 9 seconds off in qualifying. Again, the MBM cars never really been the best on the road courses. Dexter being 9 seconds off in qualifying, and he still made the show on time. Oh, you got to love that. 9 seconds off in qualifying, and he still made the show on time. Didn't even have to take a provisional. But yeah, that means if CHK entered, they would have made the show. And I'm like, oh. Now, obviously, if you're Mike Harmon and the team, you can't predict that 8 cars are going to have issues from practice to qualifying. You can't predict that. But it's like, oh, What a missed opportunity. CHK would have had a golden opportunity to make their 4th race of the season. And unfortunately, they didn't. They weren't able to take it. I mean, I was glad for Carl Long, but man, that would have been a golden opportunity for Mike Harmon and CHK to make the show. But yeah, so nobody goes home. Obviously, everybody makes the show. The only real underdog showings in qualifying, Josh Bilicki in 11th. That's not shocking. I mean, again, DGM's not the best team, but man, when you get a guy like Josh in there, he's so good. Josh Bilicki is so good. I think it's about time Josh Bilicki really gets himself a good ride. He's got the sponsor dollars behind him from Insurance King and Ziegler Auto Group. He's got the sponsorship behind him. I really hope that Josh Bilicki one day gets the ride that he really deserves. Because, man, has he done good for these lower tier teams. But, yeah, we got into the race. Even though, like I said, they qualified 30th. I was listening to Dexter for the whole race because you guys know I'm a Carl Long guy. And, they really weren't necessarily competitive. They couldn't hang with the field at all. They were kind of running with the Emerling Gase cars the whole race. It was the Emerling Gase cars and Dexter Stacy were kind of running in a trio by themselves the whole race. For what it felt like when we were racing, I mean, we had so many start and stop. The average green flag run of this race was 3.8 laps. And it was an argument that I was arguing on Twitter. Before we really start to talk about the race, I understand the idea of modified pit stops, okay? Obviously, the pit crews are in Richmond. But at the end of the day, are we acting like we've never seen guys who aren't the most experienced doing pit crews going over the wall? I mean, would it really be that bad to train some shop guys to do over-the-wall activities? I'm not the fastest guy in the world, but I've done live pit stops. I'm not fast, but I've done them. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world because it absolutely killed the flow of this race. I understand the professional guys are all across the country, but at the same time, why couldn't we come up with a solution to at least keep this race green? All these cautions were just sucked the fun out of this race. It was still a great race. Road America is incapable of putting on a bad race, but we really can't say like all the guys that were going over the wall in this race couldn't have tried to do it live. Like what? Just have the car come in and then try to do it as fast as you can. I don't understand why that would be such a big problem. Like the unsafetyness, you don't want people getting hurt. I understand that, but that's what we were doing in the 60s, 70s, 80s, up until the early 90s. I can't imagine that we had all these random people doing pit stops. We had all these random people doing pit stops. Up until about the early 90s is when we finally had a set crew of people. So it's nothing new. There's people back in the day that would take race fans off the street and tell them to come change their tires during the race. So I don't understand why that would be such a big problem. Finding people to do pit stops or finding shop guys to train them for live pit stops. That's what MBM has done. That's what a lot of guys like CHK have done in the past. They've trained a lot of their mechanics and road crew are also their pit crew. And I honestly feel that these top teams should train their road guys to do pit crew. You don't have to be lightning fast. 12-second pit stops. But I think they could easily be respectable 16, 18-second pit stops. And it would be fun to see them live because it would see who's faster. Which team has a better prepped second-tier pit crew? Because it really sucked the fun out of this race. When you have 4, not 1, not 2, but 4 purposely put cautions, I'm like, are you serious? And I understand. The first one was to check tire wear. Fine. That one gets a pass. But when you still have 3 stage cautions, this is a 45-lap race. What are we doing here? Okay? There's a reason why the stages don't work on the road courses. They don't. They suck on the road course, especially at a 4-mile track. So if we're going back to Road America next year for Xfinity, which it looks like we are, can we please try to do something with live pit stops? Or at least make it a standalone race on its own weekend where we can fly in the pit crews. So I didn't like it. I'm like all these caution laps because The longest run of the day was the first 10-lap run, and that was only 10 laps. Then we kept having wreck after wreck after wreck after wreck and caution and stage caution. It was getting ridiculous to the point where it was starting to not enjoy the race. So when we go to Road America next year, we really need to try to change this. Have other people doing the live pit stops. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Not everybody can do it, but it's also not the hardest thing in the world. It isn't. I've done it. I've done it live. Is it easy? No. I bet there's a lot of pressure doing a live pit stop. I've done it. I've fueled the car on a live pit stop. I've changed tires on a live pit stop. I haven't done jack. It's the only one I haven't done yet, in the position I haven't done. But I've been rear changer and I've been fueler during live pit stops. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. But if a guy like me can do it, why can't we have just these road crew guys do it? So that's a little rant about that. That's because it just kind of sucked the fun out of the race, if that makes sense. It did. It just sucked the fun out of it. Anyway, so race got going green. Race got going green. Justin Allgaier, class of the field. I mean, it looked like nobody was going to get him. At a track like this, though, it is hard for some of these backmarker teams to keep up. Really, I would say the only backmarker that was able to keep up, backmarkers that were able to keep up with the field the entire race, were the 51 of Jeremy Clements, albeit in a backup car, which was even more impressive, and Josh Beliggi. They were the only two classified, I would say, mid-pack backmarker organizations that were able to keep up with the field. Teams like JD Motorsports, Emerling Gase, like I said, MBM, even Alpha Prime, they were kind of struggling outside the top 20, top 25, just kind of logging laps. One team that I just feel really bad for, and I don't know how they've gotten this bad, is SS Greenlight Racing. SS Greenlight Racing is arguably having the worst season I've ever seen them have. And that's even going back to their truck series days in the late 2000s, early 2010s. They are just having a garbage season. And they really had a good way to start this year. I mean, they had Blaine Perkins in the 07 full-time, and they had Gray Galding in the 08 full-time. You know, they really, as far as I'm concerned, I thought they had a good plan. They switched from Ford to Chevrolet, and I thought, man, like this was really going to be a turnaround season for SS Greenlight Racing. And it's just been nothing but garbage. I mean, the 07 with Perkins ran like crap. The 08 with Galding ran meh. Perkins got released mainly because he just didn't do well. Galding eventually got released. I don't know. It wasn't lack of sponsorship. Maybe it was just a mutual parting ways. And then they've just been struggling for pay drivers ever since. I'm kind of shocked that they're able to keep both teams going because they've been relying on pay drivers just to fill up the 07 and 08. I'm glad that Stefan's in the 07 to give Stefan something to do, because with Alpha Prime, you know, being so locked up with their pay drivers, that this 07 at least gives something for Stefan Parsons to do. Albeit, even when Stefan's in the car, he doesn't have much luck. He actually failed to qualify last week at Pocono, which is just so shocking to see. And this race, once again, just showed that they have a lot of problems at that organization. The 07 of Catherine Legg, she brought out the first yellow right as we were coming to the competition caution. A fuel pump went out on the car, so she was done after 9 laps. And then Alex LeBay, next to Chandler Smith, had nearly the exact same crash. We'll skip ahead to Alex LeBay's crash. Lost brakes going down the front straightaway. Didn't have time to junk the car in the wall like Chandler Smith did. So basically just went right into the wall head on, well over probably 100 miles per hour. Thank God we got tire barriers. And, that 08 car is killed. The chassis is killed. I would say there's little to nothing salvageable from that car. I would say, at best, the 08 of Alex LeBay, that car probably just belongs in dirty mow acres at this point. I don't think there's really anything salvageable from it. Yeah, the driver's seat, the front windshield, back shield. I mean, you know they're going to take as much as they can off the car. That's salvageable, but there's really nothing on that 08 car that's probably salvageable. Just glad Alex got out, number one. That looked eerily similar to the Gunter Schalduck crash from the 2011 Rolex sports car race. So, yeah, it's just a real shame because SS Greenlight Racing, I mean, not just 4 years ago. This was almost a playoff caliber organization back in 2019 with Greg Galding. This team was on fire with Greg Galding as its driver. They ran 13th in the points and top 15 in the owner points in 2019. And here we are in 2023, and they are just garbage. They are garbage. They can't do anything no matter who they have in the car. And it's not even really the driver's fault. Just the cars are just no good. Yeah, and they almost won Daytona as well. I mean, they're good on the plate tracks because they can get the ECR engines. But that's down to the ECR engines, not really, the team itself. So, yeah. But yeah, some of the backmarkers did have issues. We had Chandler Smith's rough crash. He junked it into the wall to save himself. Brett Moffitt had a hub failure. Ryan Ellis, he had a tire rod break in a crash. We all know Alex LeBay's crash. Even the top tier teams, all three Joe Gibbs cars, might I add, fell out of the race. The 20 decided to go through the grass and destroy the splitter. The 18 broke a right front suspension, and the 19 leaked oil everywhere. We basically had, at the end of this race, a 2012 Watkins Glen type finish, which was actually kind of fun in a way. And then we had the 45 of Leland Honeyman breaking the transmission on one of the restarts. Other than that, we had 27 cars finish this race. The last restart was a lot of fun. Justin Allgaier led. You could clearly tell that there was still some sort of oil on the track. And for a brief moment, we actually had Sage Karam and Sam Hunt Racing leading the race. Were they going to keep the lead? Probably not. I don't think Sage had the car in him to keep the win, to keep the lead and keep the win. Allgaier, in true Justin Allgaier fashion, threw the win away as usual. Looked like for a second maybe Parker Kligerman was going to sneak away with this win, but it didn't. That didn't turn out to be as well. Sam Mayer comes through, gets past Parker Kligerman, and finally gets his first career Xfinity Series win, much needed, because he was definitely starting to get a lot of criticism from the Junior Motorsports fan base about not winning, not really running well. And finally, he can shut up those haters with a win. Albeit he tore his car to pieces on the cool-down lap, which was pretty funny. Shout out to Carl Edwards. Sage Karam would still end up with a top 5 finish. Josh Balicki would end up with a top 10 finish for the 91 organization, so great for them. And even give a shout out to Brandon Jones and AJ Allmendinger. AJ Allmendinger crashed his car with a couple laps to go, still drove back up to 9th. And Brandon Jones in a backup car up to 10th. Some other great underdog finishes we got due to the last lap shenanigans. Brennan Poole and Kyle Weatherman, double top 20 for Johnny Davis, despite both cars being unsponsored. That was cool to see. JD Motorsports get a double top 20. Blaine Perkins with a top 20. Brad Perez, the 44 car, finally has a good run for once. The 44 with a 19th place finish. Josh Williams, 21st. Patrick Emmerling, despite being unsponsored, ran a safe 22nd. Stanton Barrett, 24th. And Dexter, Stacy, and Carl Long get 25th. Arguably the best run of MBM's entire season. Arguably the best race that MBM had all year. In terms of all the races they ran this year, in terms of the competitiveness and where they finished, this was the best race that MBM had all year. And I'm just so happy to finally say that. This wasn't about owner points. They're so far behind in owner points. It's just about making races week to week now for MBM Motorsports. And just to see him do this well was so good. So just so happy. Happy to see Uncle Carl finally sounding happy on the radio for once. Just a lot of fun to hear. I feel bad for Jeremy Clements. He got taken out on the last lap. He was running top 10 in a backup car. And unfortunately, they got taken out, and their 27th place finish does not show the effort that the 51 team showed this weekend. This was a very fun race, very good race. I'm not going to call it a great race because of all the damn yellows. If we did not have all these stupid cautions I would call this a great race and a classic Xfinity race at Road America. But because of all the cautions, I'm going to just call it a good race for sure. Yeah. So that was Road America. Great for Uncle Carl getting a top 25. Good payday, just a good run, clean car in one piece. Great for Johnny Davis. And yeah, we'll talk more about them when we get to our Michigan preview. Now we turn into the 2023 Cookout 400 at Richmond. I'm going to kind of skim through this one. Not much to say. Only one legit caution the entire race, which was kind of for a dumb spin by the 99 of Suarez after getting dumped by Noah Gragson. None of the backmarkers did good in this race. Like we kind of expected them to do. BJ McLeod got the best qualifying run of his entire career by going out in Group B, 21st. Actually outran all three Penske cars in qualifying. Arguably the funniest moment of the whole weekend. Excuse me there. J.J. Yaley started 35th, finished 35th. Ty Dillon started 34th, finished 34th. Daniel Suarez started 33rd, finished 33rd. That's kind of funny. Justin Haley started 28th and finished 30th. One of the worst performances I've probably seen out of the 31 this entire year. Ryan Newman really shows you what Ryan Newman can do in those Rick Ware cars. He got that car into the top 30, 29th, arguably the best run possible for that car. Todd Gilliland only 25th, Michael McDowell 22nd, but Michael had a better car than 22nd. They just kind of screwed him on pit strategy. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. only 17th. Again, not a race where the backmarkers are particularly do good. Chris Buescher wins. In a great for RFK. I wish Brad could have won. He's my guy, but obviously pit crew screwed him. I mean, figured Brad was going to lose. The race, in my opinion, was no good. We didn't see a legit pass for the lead all day. The only reason why we saw a pass for the lead was because of different tire strategies. I don't know what's necessarily old school about this. I know people are like, it's old school pit strategy. I don't really know what's old school about it. I've watched numerous Richmond races from back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Yeah, we've had long green flag runs, but we've also had passes for the lead. We've also had multiple passing going on track, moving people out of the way, crashes. I mean, I don't understand what's really old school about all this tire strategy. People are trying to say what's old school. It gives that old school vibe. How? I watched all these Richmond races from the past, and I don't see anything that resembles what we saw last Sunday. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And I made it very public. I made a controversial take. I'll take the L that I made a controversial take, saying that an ARCA race at Richmond would be miles better than a Cup race would. Maybe I shouldn't have said miles better, but we really can't judge it until we've actually seen it. If a 30-car ARCA race took place at Richmond, would it be better than a Cup race? We don't know. We really don't know. Did I think the truck race was better than the Cup race? 1,000 times yes. Truck race was way better than the Cup race. I did not like that Cup race at all. Did not. You guys, I mean, again, we can agree to disagree. I don't want to argue. If you like the race, good. I mean, I'm not going to say that's not a bad thing, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Richmond does not deserve 2 dates. It is just, in my opinion, it's boring. It's not been fun for a long time. It has not been fun for a long time. The days of the sealer days, I mean, Richmond used to be so good, and it's not special at all anymore. Especially if Denny Hamlin had won. Good God, if Denny Hamlin had won, that would have been even worse. But yeah, I don't understand. And you have all these drivers who are saying like, oh, if you didn't like that race, I don't know what you want. And it's like, buddy, I want to be able to see a driver go up there and physically pass someone for the lead. I want to see someone move someone out of the way. It's a short track. That's what we're here to see. Moving people out of the way, shoving people out of the way to get the lead. We didn't see any of that. You basically saw 36 cars out there following each other. Yeah, there were a couple of cars that could pass, but that was about it. So I didn't like it. Did not like it one bit. I don't even say there's any highlights of the race for me. Not really, no. I just didn't like it. So Yeah, and then they're throwing they're basically doing a Hail Mary test with this next gen car at Richmond because they know it sucks. I mean, they've been throwing all these different setups for 2 days straight now, trying to find a setup that works. In my opinion, you want to try an outrageous setup? Take the splitter off, take the spoiler off, and take the diffuser off, and put these suckers up to 900. That would give you something. So you have no front downforce, no rear downforce. You got 900 horsepower. Good luck out there. That would be entertaining to see. So, yeah, the fact that they're throwing all these Hail Mary setups at the next-gen car for Richmond really shows you that NASCAR knows that these races aren't very good. And if you disagree with that, I'm sorry. This is kind of what we just say on this channel. But yeah, that was Richmond and Road America in a nutshell. And now we move on to Michigan. Geez, we're already 46 minutes in. Huh. But yeah, we're moving to Michigan now. The one thing I will start off with, why doesn't the Truck Series race at Michigan anymore? Like, honest question, I thought the Truck Series still raced at Michigan, but apparently we don't. I don't know why that was made. The Truck Series Michigan races with the drafting package that the Truck Series had, Michigan Truck Race was one of the most looked forward to truck races of the year. Last couple of Michigan truck races were phenomenal. So that was actually quite disappointing to hear that the Truck Series is not racing Michigan anymore. I was very disappointed to find that out. But yeah, so we only have Xfinity and Cup. So we will go over those. Xfinity, we have 40 cars for 38 positions. We'll have 2 DNQs. The oddball entries, we have Garrett Smithley back in the 4 for Johnny Davis. Stefan Parsons returns to the 07. Mason Maggio will be in the 08 for SS Greenlight Racing. AJ Allmendinger continues to run Xfinity races, which is just, again, it's weird to see. Ty Gibbs back in the 19. Connor Mosack back in the 24. Patrick Emmerling's in the 35. Mason Massey will be in the 44 for Alpha Prime Racing. Jeffrey Earnhardt returns to the 45 for Alpha Prime Racing. CJ McLaughlin's back in the 53, so you know which car is going to run slow. Sage Karam will be in the 66 for MBM Motorsports. That's a shocker right there. That one's a shocker. Dawson Cram for CHK in the 74. Carson Hocevar in the Spire Junior Motorsports entry. And Kyle Weatherman in the 91. So yeah, 2 cars are going home. Michigan, of course, is a track. Michigan, of course, is a track that is all based on speed. Like I said, getting a good qualifying lap, good arc into turn 1, good arc into turn 3, and really getting a good arc off of turn 4 and off of turn 2. Last year, CHK and an MBM car did miss the race, basically just because they were too slow. It's kind of wondering who's going to DNQ this race. We know the MBM car hasn't exactly had a lot of speed in it, but I'm really curious about this. Does this car have an affiliation entry with Alpha Prime Racing? We know Sage Karam has been running quite a few races this season for Alpha Prime Racing, and we know that Carl Long and Alpha Prime have worked together before, running the 66 at Atlanta earlier this season for Alpha Prime. I have to imagine that this has something to do with Alpha Prime Racing. I have to imagine it does. I'll be genuinely shocked. This is a full MBM setup. I really will be shocked. If Sage is driving the car, they have a sponsor. They just probably haven't announced it yet. But I would say the 66 definitely has a good chance at making the show this weekend. For DNQs, man, I tell you, it's kind of hard to pick. I don't want to pick the 66 because they got a good driver in there, especially if it is a low-key and Alpha Prime setup. Alpha Prime's helping them with the car. CHK, even Brennan Poole in this Mike Harmon car missed this race last year by about 0.3. So it'll be interesting to see if they can show the best speed. But if I had to be honest, the DNQs I'll go with, I will give a pass to the 66 this weekend, and I will take the 74, and I'm actually going to take the 07. As much as I love Stefan Parsons We have seen the 07 struggle really, really bad this year. And I know everybody's picking the 53 in the chat, but I wouldn't predict that because the 53 is actually ahead of both the 07, 44 entries respectively. And I'm not sure if those two cars will crack the top 33. I am not sure. I know it's not taking it as a surprise, but I don't see the 07, again, with how close these Michigan races can be. I don't actually see the 44, the 53, or the 07 potentially making the top 33. With how slow we have seen SS Greenlight racing this year, especially their DNQ at Pocono. No, the 08 will be fine. 08's fine, but I could potentially see the 07 going home. Not because of Stephon Parsons, but because simply the 07 is just too slow. So the 74 and the 07 are my DNQ picks. But if the 07 does make it in, then I will take the 53, yes. Yeah, the Michigan Xfinity races are usually pretty entertaining. A lot of crashes. Sometimes these races can have no DNFs, and sometimes these races can have like 20 DNFs. Like, for instance, in 2021, we had like 15 DNFs, whereas last year's Xfinity race at Michigan, we only had 4 DNFs. So, yeah, we can have one Michigan Xfinity race with like 15 DNFs and then one with like 5. So it's hit or miss when it comes to DNFs of the Xfinity race. I think this one's going to be pretty chaotic. I got a lot of hungry drivers in there. I got a lot of Cup guys in there. The playoffs are coming, so they want to get a good run. So I think we're going to see a pretty chaotic race. And then the Cup Series, we actually have 37 cars. The 62 is back again with Austin Hill. A couple of changes. J.J. Ailey still in the 15 for Rick Ware. The 51 this week will be back with Cole Custer. And Josh Bilicki is back in the 78 for Live Fast. An update on the top 33 charter battle, which is kind of one of the more fun battles to talk about right now. There's a lot of rumors that Trackhouse might be expanding next year and that one of their charters might come from Rick Ware Racing. Although I would imagine that if Rick Ware can keep both charters, he will still run both cars next year. And I know this is a hot take. Some of you guys might agree with this. Some of you guys might disagree with this. After seeing how he ran at Richmond, and honestly looking at his Cup career as a whole, I actually would say that J.J. Yaley is still better than Justin Haley. I would actually say that Justin Haley is a downgrade for Rick Ware Racing. Now, that's kind of a hot take. You guys can agree to disagree with that. But I actually believe that J.J. Yaley is better for Rick Ware Racing than Justin Haley is. Because J.J. Yaley is just, he's been the best thing to happen to Rick Ware Racing. I don't think Justin Haley is going to do anything at all in that 51. So, like I said, put Yaley in the 31. He would do way better than Justin Haley. So, I really hope that Justin Haley coming over to Rick Ware Racing doesn't shaft J.J. Yaley out. I don't think it will. JJ's got a lot of sponsor dollars behind him. But honestly, hot take. J.J. Haley better than Justin Haley. But yeah, the top 33 charter battle. Right now, it's pretty contested. Right now, the 42 is in. It's kind of spread out a little bit. The gap between 33rd to 35th is 7 points. Legacy Motor Club 33rd is ahead by 5 points over the Rick Ware 51 car and is ahead of the 77 Spire entry by 7 points. So, like I said, 7 points separating 3 cars as we come into a track that's really just all about raw speed, which could actually benefit the 42, as when it comes to raw speed, the 42 is faster than the 51 and the 77. Not by much, but is faster. So this could be another opportunity weekend for Noah Gragson. Of course, if he crashes out again, which could happen. And there's also some rumors that with the switch to Toyota next year, that Gragson might be done potentially. There's a lot of rumors going around that John Hunter Nemechek could potentially be filling in that 42 next year with the switch to Toyota, which does make sense. But yeah, I do agree with what you guys are saying. I'm kind of surprised they haven't put Yaley in the 51. He definitely seems to be the stronger driver at Rick Ware Racing. I would put Cole Custer in the 15, and I would honestly keep Yaley as the primary driver of the 51 to try to keep both cars in the top 33. So, but yeah, are the Noah Gragson rumors true? Could Noah Gragson just be an Xfinity lifer like Justin Allgaier? I could see it. Justin Allgaier tried his hand in the Cup Series for a couple years. It didn't work. And now he's made himself like a Frank Kimmel of the Xfinity Series, just without all the championships. No, there's different guys going to Colleague next year in the Cup Series, trust me. I don't know where Noah Gragson goes. Does he go back to JRM? Does he take over the 20 car at Joe Gibbs Racing? I feel kind of bad for Noah because he, like I said, he just sounds like a defeated man every time he drives the 42. 42 car is junk this year. I think that's just they've now started to put together some decent races and are starting to pull back away. But I'm curious on what Rick Ware is going to do. Is he going to try to keep both charters, or has he already made up his mind? Has he made up his mind that he's only going to go down to one car next year? But I will say this, Justin Haley, I don't think is going to do anything for Rick Ware Racing. And if he is slated to take over the 6 car for Keselowski, I don't think he's going to do anything over there anywhere. I've never really particularly seen Justin Haley as anything special. And that's being honest. I've never really seen specialness out of Justin Haley. He's great on play tracks, but everywhere else, he's just meh, in my personal opinion. Really is. I've not really seen anything special out of him. I mean, his run at the Chicago Road Course was kind of a fluke because he got up there due to pit strategy, and because he couldn't pass, he just stayed up there. So I don't really say his second place finish was anything special because he wasn't even running top 10 anyway. He only got up there because he stayed out. So, yeah. But I think we're definitely in for a more fun race. Michigan's a very fun track. These next-gen cars race good at these big tracks, so I'm predicting a good race. But yeah, the top 33 charter battle is the one that I'm going to really start to keep an eye on now that we are well into the season, 22 races in. Hard to believe it's been 22 races this season. But, yeah, it's going to be a fun race. Saturday and Sunday, of course, with the ARCA race on Friday. Again, we'll do that podcast on Thursday. Yeah, you're right. In the chat, I could see Justin Haley becoming a Michael McDowell too. And by the way, before we get out of here, I really hope the rumors that Michael McDowell might be going to Stewart-Haas Racing are not true. Hot take, Michael McDowell taking over the 10 car would be a downgrade for Michael McDowell. The 30, if I'm concerned right now, Front Row Motorsports is almost better than Stewart-Haas Racing right now in terms of overall performance. Front Row Motorsports really has kind of had a better year than SHR. Without Kevin Harvick, SHR is garbage this year, in my personal opinion. So, again, that's another hot take. I know, it's not really a backmarker take, but it's another hot take. But anyway, guys, that's kind of it for me. We've previewed. We went over Road America. We went over Richmond, now one of my favorite races. We previewed Michigan. Should be a fun weekend of speed because we all love Michigan. And yeah, kind of an unpredictably winter track. So I look forward to watching the races this weekend with you guys, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll see to all the listeners on here. We will see you guys on Thursday live at 7 p.m. For the ARCA Racing podcast. Till then, take care. Have a great rest of your Tuesday nights, and we will see you then. Colby Evans, starting Park Car, signing off. I will catch you guys on Thursday.